Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tiny Classroom Training Live. We're thrilled to have you here as we embark on enhancing your professional skills. This session focuses on making difficult conversations easy. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat as our coaches Don Zalou and Artie Nathan will be answering some as we move along. Let me pass the microphone to our esteemed coaches who will guide us through today's session. Artie and Don, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Juan, and good to be back. Hi, Don. How are you today?
Very well, Artie. Thank you again, Juan. This is fun. We've had a little break for a couple weeks, but here we are back again. What are we talking about today, Artie?
Well, we're talking about difficult conversations and how to make them a little less difficult and a little more effective. And the reason we're spending some time on difficult conversations is not because there's something you should
Couple
plan
weeks,
for,
but yeah,
but they happen all the time, so you have to be ready for them.
you do. And in being ready, there's some steps that we want to go over today for how you sort of conduct yourself through this. And the first thing is really prepare in advance, isn't it? How can I have a meaningful, difficult conversation of any sort if I don't have a plan? And so, in preparing in advance, suggest that you clarify your goals for the conversation. And Artie knows that I like to say, begin with the end in mind. That's very, very important in all sorts of communications, but certainly here. What's the output that you're looking for? And then in doing that, you can anticipate, the potential reactions and objectives objections that you might get from the person you're having the conversation. And it's important that you gather all the relevant facts and information before the conversation.
Yeah,
What else?
it's good
Yeah.
to get ready for sure.
Yeah.
You should choose the right time and the right place.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you, most difficult conversations happen at the wrong time. They just grow up, and
They do.
it's all of a sudden it's all around you. You're not ready for it. It's not a neutral location. It's certainly not private, and
No.
uh, everybody's sitting there looking at you and looking at the person you're having the conversation with, and it just gets worse from there. So
It does.
think it's going to happen. Plan, as Don said, and plan to do it in private, someplace where you can at least almost control the situation.
Well, with that done, so you're ready to go. You've put yourself in the context of the location of the conversation in a fairly quiet and safe place. And a lot of folks think that they ought to start a tough conversation with, this is all about you making this mistake or doing that. And that does nothing but put a person on to a very defensive stance. So we want to start with empathy, which is a very important part of emotional intelligence, right? So we want to really always acknowledge the other person's perspective. Tell me what you're thinking. And I honor that. I really appreciate where you're coming from and what you're thinking about this, and show some understanding for their feelings, right? They're in a sort of a one down conversational state often, as they will perceive it. You want to bring them up to an equal in the conversation. It's two equal people trying to solve a problem. And so it has to begin with empathy and understanding. And then what do you think is next, Artie?
Well, I think you have to use I statements as we talk about. I feel, or I think, or I am concerned. Instead of saying you did something wrong, you made a mistake. Let's talk about you, because people are going to be on the defensive anyways. So put yourself right in the middle of this and say, look, I want to talk about this. I feel concerned about something. I hope that you blah, blah, blah. But never get into a conversation where you think it's going to be difficult by saying you, because as soon as you do that, it feels like you're accusing them, or at least they're going to feel like you're accusing them. So try to stay away from that.
That's actually, when we use you in that context, we really are accusing them. We're trying to put it all on them, and they can't relate to us. And so we also want to be very, very specific, right? Not in general terms. For example, you're always late is not true. You were late on the 15th and the 19th. I'm concerned about that. It's a very different way of looking at it. There's really no such thing as always. So we want to provide specific, concrete examples, rather than generalizations, and focus on behavior and actions, not judgments about their character. Right? I don't know enough about their character to make a judgment. I'm interested in what they're doing. and what I would like them to be able to do. What
And,
else?
well, you want to listen,
Yeah.
actively listen, and look like you're listening. Don't
Mhm.
look like you're distracted. Certainly don't use your phone, or don't have your phone anywhere near you. Give them your full attention, and uh, make sure that when they say something, you you give them assurance that you understand or that you agree. And
Mhm.
if you're confused, ask for clarifying questions. Uh, Tell me more is something we always
Yeah.
encourage people to
Mhm.
say. But in listening, be sure that your body language doesn't give you away as not listening. If you're listening, pay attention, look at them. If don't stand there like this, or don't be going like that. Make
Yeah.
sure that they think that you're right here and you're fully engaged.
You mean my looking at my cell phone while I'm pretending to listen? By the way, what were you saying? What'd you say, Artie? What were you talking about? I
I
was
don't.
I was I wasn't listening. Yeah.
So here's the one I like:
Uh-huh.
stay calm. And I have to tell you, I like this, but I am rarely calm when I get into one of these conversations. And I have to stop and take a deep breath and remember what I'm doing and take the temperature down, take the pressure down, take a short break if your emotions are starting to escalate.
Yeah.
And uh, calmness is important, because once you lose control of a calm conversation, one of these is going to get terrible. So
That's
make
right.
sure that you do everything you can to stay calm.
That's absolutely right. And in many ways, that's almost the most important thing we're talking about here, because that can zero out and destroy a conversation in seconds, right? And we want to, and these conversations are really intended as collaborative conversations. We want to collaborate with the individual on the solution, not tell them. Most of the time, I suppose there's a few examples, but telling simply pushes people away. It tells them they don't want to do it. They automatically reject it. So we want to ask for the individual's ideas. What do you think is a good way to solve this? What would you think a good solution or a way to go here would be? And we want to work together to find a mutually acceptable solution, because at the end of the day, even a difficult conversation is about building trust, isn't it, Artie? That's
Yeah,
the root of it, right?
it
And
is.
what? Go ahead.
And a good way to build trust is look for common ground. I mean,
Mhm.
there are shared goals and values
Mhm.
in every situation.
That's right.
And so think of what those are and find areas of agreement, because you can offset the conversation, the difficulty of that conversation, by
Mhm.
reminding the other person that we agree on a lot. We have the same goals and the same values. And
That's right.
once you get them in that mindset, it starts to take the pressure off.
It does. And so, following up, summarize. Always summarize a conversation at the end. If you don't summarize the conversation at the end, it's a little like blowing up a balloon and not tying it off. It just goes sputtering off down the room, doesn't it? Makes some noise and nothing much happens. And always schedule a follow-up meeting if it's needed. Let's meet again next Thursday, and just I want to hear from you about what you feel, what you felt about this, and maybe what some of your ideas are. And again, that extends trust, and that extends equality in the conversation. And it asks the other person to tell you how they're feeling and what they're going to do about it. Very, very important.
That follow up is, you're right, Don. Following up is so important, because there's going to be lingering emotions that
Right.
that are there after a conversation like this.
That's right.
But
That's right.
difficult conversations don't have to be difficult. As we've said before,
That's right.
approach them with the right mindset, prepare yourself, set it up appropriately where and how you want it, and then stay calm. You're going to have these conversations. Some are going to be difficult. But if you think about these key points that we've talked about today, they can be less difficult and more effective.
That's right. It's a small little wedge of the broad coaching spectrum of the ways we can interact and develop the people that work with us or that we're responsible for. And I think that difficult conversation is just a very small piece of all those kinds of coaching conversations you're going to have. But they all begin with end in mind. They all have the same ideas of listening and curiosity in the future, trust, etc. It's all built in. So sometimes the difficulty in a conversation lies with us. We don't like them. We see them as difficult rather than simply a form of developmental trust building conversation. Right? And so if we can enter them that way, we can be way more productive and our life gets a lot easier. And frankly, the whole thing's more effective across the board. So thanks for doing this again with us today. And this relates to one of our tiny classroom training courses, doesn't it, Artie?
Yes, it does. And if you're interested, go to our website and check out Tiny Classroom Training, because handling difficult conversations is an important part of your role. So thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.
We certainly will. Thank you.